Just look at the numbers. The impact is growing, 44 million worldwide, 10 million baby boomers. It's a health crisis of our generation. 215 billion spent annually on care and less than 1% on research at a time when baby boomers are out. Now we move into how we engage. So take Seth Rogen. We all know Seth Rogen. He really got pissed when he went to testify before Congress and only two senators showed up. So what did he do? He tweeted out the names of everyone who should have been there to his 4 million followers. Now, that did not sit well with staffers and members of Congress. But again, that's a reaction. That's what we do. That's what we do in this day and age. Now, you know, I could feel everyone getting a little uncomfortable when we have a conversation about this disease. And it's no more difficult with baby boomers of my generation. I would really like to believe that 60 is the new 40. But in the back of my mind, I know that it's not possible, all right? But go have a conversation about a disease where you lose control of who you are, what you do, and become totally independent. So I got digital. And by the way, the only reason I have survived professionally is I lived wired. Even as an advocate, when I started writing up in my bedroom, I lived wired. And that's how I was discovered, rediscovered, even as a caregiver, even sitting upstairs in my upstairs bedroom. So I realized it's very hard to get a conversation going. So I thought, you know, this is not working. Let's move it into what I call a safe zone. And I got together with two other nonprofits, Us Against Alzheimer's and Bright Focus, that funds research, and we pushed it into the 21st Century Brain Trust. This is just all of a sudden has no stigma, pre-disease, let's have a conversation. And because that's our role model for the future, not the guy with the medallion, but that buffed guy with a six-pack, right? That's the person I'm trying to get a conversation going with. And right now, they are into their health. They do not want to talk about the disease. So what was the conversation? Smart to do. We can monitor ourselves. We do it anyway. This is the time of the quantified self. Be proactive to ward off disease. I began to have a conversation in the prevention space because why? I could do it all of a sudden. Small wearable devices. How many of us are already tracking our steps right now as we go? Tablets. Self-administered testing. I was really into self-administered testing because when you self-administer these tests, you bypass stigma, you bypass ageism, and you are really into it because it's all about you. How many admit to playing brain games? There are 60 million who play Lumosity globally. Do you play it daily? Or do you play it occasionally, daily? Women are into it, by the way, in a big way. The guys who like it are the 30-year-olds who are online traders, and they're trying to sharpen their game in the morning. Do we care? Why? We don't care. So I used this information, and then I thought, well, we really have to begin to ask an important question in our space, because I'm moving around in our space trying to get a conversation going. So my next conversation was, we're in the brain. Do men and women think differently? Now, if I asked you, raise your hands, do men and women think differently? Of course. Well, let's just check and see.
We're going to start discussing men's brains, women's brains, and how they're very different from each other. Now, I want to start with men's brains. All right? Now, men's brains are very unique. Men's brains are made up of little boxes. And we have a box for everything. We've got a box for the car. We've got a box for the money. We've got a box for the job. We've got a box for you. We've got a box for the kids. We got boxes everywhere. And the rule is the boxes don't touch. When a man discusses a particular subject, we go to that particular box. We pull that box out. We open the box. We discuss only what is in that box. Now, women's brains are very, very different from men's brains. Women's brains are made up of a big ball of wire. and everything is connected to everything. And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's just... It's one of the reasons why women tend to remember everything.
So that brings, again, the idea is have a little fun, get people engaged, of course. And I saw even the young men nodding their heads about boxes, everything still compartmentalized, right? But the idea was to ask a question, and there is always a public conversation and there's a backroom conversation. The public conversation was asking a question that was asked in cardiovascular disease about 15 years ago, and it was transformative. Are there differences between men and women when it comes to heart attacks? And we found out by doing sex-based research that it's the biggest killer of women. Now, why not ask that question about the brain? Does sex matter? Why are women 2 times more at risk for the disease? Yes, we outlive men, so that puts us at higher risk, but there's something going on in the science and we don't know what's going on. So my goal in this challenge was to inform the science, also say, go mine the data. This was at a time of sequester. Don't reinvent the wheel. They're public databases. Respect the public investment. And the third challenge was to mobilize women. Ask a question that they really cared about. And we went online with a $100,000 award. It was an innovation challenge. And this is what happened. We ended up with hitting over 806 open project rooms, 65 countries. It was vetted by the NIA, done in collaboration with the Foundation for NIH. We had elaborate judging panels. We had winners in the first series that shared in a $100,000 prize. They came from all over, from Luxembourg. They came from cancer space. We were opening up the science and saying what's out there and inviting those who knew algorithms. We wanted fresh minds and fresh thinking around the science. And then we were going to say, go mine the data. What I learned was that I needed experts for the experts. And for fun, I threw in these computerized data systems that are used for online trading that can help you compute and look at the changes in hypotheses. Now, half the people didn't get the science, but it was vetted and re-vetted. And here's where I took a risk. We had gone out and we had over 805 open project rooms, 65 countries in about 6 weeks. We went to a judging in that round. They judged and they got it down to 4. I had judges for the judges. And then we looked at feasibility and capacity to actually do the data mining. And then we had 4 very potential candidates. So I said, well, why leave this in a closed room? Let's open it up, because I believe in the wisdom of the crowd. So we took a gamble and we reopened the selection of who was going to win the $50,000 in awards to both the scientific community, a separate platform, by the way, because one was for the science and one was for what we call the informed public, who was very interested in participating. In less than 3 days, we got 6,500 votes from 33 countries. So the energy was there. Well, in science, this is real science, we took it to the New York Academy of Science, where all the hot shots in the room were there with a live vote. The vote difference, less than 5% between the wisdom of the crowd and all the experts in the room. And because of that margin, my question was, is there another 50K in the room? And it was a woman who stepped up and went from Santa Fe because she wanted more women in STEM. And the award winners came out of cancer for an Alzheimer's space. So that is the energy when you open up a problem to be solved to the world. And you can feel the energy and you know that there's engagement. Never underestimate the ability to go back to them and engage them and keep them engaged, as I'm trying to do with you right now. Now, again, I parked everything under the 21st Century Brain Trust. I haven't mentioned Alzheimer's to you at all. But it is also a very good cover for any conversation because we can test a conversation before we move it into the pain space. So let me just show you one of the things that I learned from writing the book was that the caregivers, there are 15 million Alzheimer's caregivers just like me. And then add to our legions those caring for loved ones with post-traumatic stress, children with autism. Just go across the diseases of the brain. This is a lifetime. 40 to 70% of the caregivers had depression, sleep problems. They were developing dementia themselves because of the intensity of care over years and 10 years off our lives. So you're looking at, I'm a 20-year caregiver. I'm a potential goner for all practical purposes. So that upset me, and I thought, well, why don't we go back online and let's open it up and let's create a virtual cohort? Because we have to go where people live. They can't get out to a clinical trial. Let's show them what the future is going to look like when we want big longitudinal studies with healthy people engaged about their brain. I mean, right now we have A4 prevention trials because we know we have to look at healthy adults who are asymptomatic of disease. So that's underway right now. So let's go to the caregivers. So we created an IRB-approved study that looks at the impact of caregiving on caregivers. And we right now are calling all caregivers for a healthy brain study. You're not sick. We want to keep you well because so much policy is predicated on the healthy caregiver across disease spaces. Protect your brain. Think about it. Be deliberate about it. Don't get lost in the disease. That study is underway and we just launched last week. So who's eligible? The trickiest thing about the term caregiver is it's a pejorative in our country because we all take care of a loved one who's sick. But when you call yourself a caregiver, it changes your relationship to your loved one. Gail Hunt from the National Alliance for Caregivers made that point last week, which was striking to me. We don't want to change the relationship with our spouse or our parent. I mean, the hardest thing to do is change those roles. So we have gone out, look who's eligible, and we're trying to help people define who they are. And now, because I believe in Carpe Diem, I want you to react. I want you to retweet. I want you to repost. Go to healthybrainstudy.org. Help us out. We are trying to build the largest cohort of caregivers in the next month. And within the first week, we have about 250 when I checked after 3 or 4 days, and we're checking again. This is all about the future. This is how we're going to communicate. We want to prove a point that find us where we live. That's what viral is about. Let us all be participants in the future. So take a moment, write it down, go to Facebook. By the way, I resisted doing a book page. I said, oh, I don't want to do that. It's not my style. I'm so glad I listened to the younger generation and I didn't listen to myself. I always trust anybody 10 years younger than I am.